Hello, this is Master Cleveland of Classic Taekwondo once again. It's been a while since I've done any material, and I figured I'd update a few things. One of the things I want to talk about in this video was things that I find that I'm hearing a lot and I'm finding a little bit disturbing is you'll hear different people talking about different martial arts and they'll say, well, what's an art that you can get a black belt in a relatively short period of time? And Taekwondo comes up a lot. A lot of people say 3 years or less. It's possible. That'd be my response. It's possible. But if we're talking about a decent school, we're talking about a school where the instructor isn't ignoring everything else but competition. The way I would say you get 2 or 3 years is if you had prior training and you held rank. It doesn't necessarily have to be a black belt, but it would be, I'd say, at least blue halfway through the system. Blue belt at least. It's possible. However, again, that instructor has their criterion that you have to pass. Mine is pretty much set up like this. I've almost gone through my rank structure like in different levels. Like, for instance, the beginner student level. This covers white belt, yellow belt, and orange belt. White to yellow, you're looking at, well, first of all, white. You have to decide that you're going to train before you're awarded that. Yellow, we're talking from white to yellow is 4 months. The average person. Because they're figuring themselves out, they're figuring out their body, and they're starting to learn the very basic techniques. Then when you move on to orange, you're talking about yet another 4 months. So you're at 8 months. You're starting to develop those basics. You're starting to learn how to do them, and you're starting to see that your body's starting to cooperate with you in learning. Right around the year mark, the next 4 months, you go into what we call the intermediate student rank, starting at green belt. This is where you've established the foundation, where you've gotten to the point where you understand your basics, and probably at this point, defending yourself against single attacks, if you've been paying attention, if you've been training diligently, shouldn't be a real problem. I'm not saying go out there and start trouble. I'm saying be able to protect yourself. That means give yourself a chance to get away. You're not going out and starting fights, because eventually you're going to find somebody better, and let's not do it. Once you hit the intermediate, the material's a little bit more involved, so you're going from green to purple. Instead of a 4 months, it's 6 months. Now, a disclaimer here. Just because you've been in class for a year, 18 months, does not mean you're going to guaranteed get promoted to these ranks. You still got to do the work. You still have to attend and do the work and pass the test, which I'll get to in a moment. Then you move on to from purple to blue, which is another 6. So you're talking about from green belt to purple belt is 6 months. Purple to blue is another 6, so that's another year. So if we're looking at this from a college perspective, you went from the beginner being a freshman, the intermediate being a sophomore. I don't use those terms, but you can kind of use that parallel. Then when you move on to the advanced ranks, you're talking about brown. You probably will reach that right around that same time. You'll be at 6 months, maybe a year, brown. At this point, your technique goes from just being, okay, I know my basics, to Your basics are becoming a bit more instinctive. You're starting to understand how things work. You're starting to look at your forms as not just means to promote, but means to understand different concepts and movements and how they apply. As I said in previous things, that forms are not always what they seem to be. Some people think, oh, this is a block, this is a punch, this is whatever. Sometimes it's not that. And here you will learn that. After brown, you have brown with black stripe. You're talking about at least a year. And then, of course, after that, you move on to red. By this point, you've got about 4 years in. At which point you would be able to, if you chose to, go for what I call the Instructor's Academy, which I'll talk about more in later videos. But from red to black is about a year. I don't stretch these things out just to... This is not a money thing. The ranks were not a money thing. I really had to break things down into perspective for different people. The orange belt rank is basically the other half of the yellow belt. So in the traditional, you go from... The Koreans didn't have a yellow. They had white, then green, then brown, or red, then black. So I kind of added those things. So you're breaking each system, or at least each level of progression down into manageable pieces. If a Taekwondo program is done properly, it would take you at least 5, maybe even 6 years to get a black belt. The Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu program, as I've seen it, it takes them 10 years. That's really because they decided to do it the old-fashioned way, to do it right, to make it not just an art, but a way of life. And I've got to tip my hat to them for that. Taekwondo, we've kind of, some schools have dropped off a bit. Classic, basically, as the name implies, there are different concepts for different levels. What you're going to see in the future is more explanation as to why forms have been done wrong for a long time. I feel as though, and as I've learned, and it took me a long time to really get this stuff. I mean, I had a really good instructor right around the time I hit 3rd degree. I had good ones, but this one, it was a game changer. He started to show me why certain things worked the way they did. I've kind of felt ashamed of that, but when I look back on it, a lot of schools, I see people who they do some really sloppy techniques, and I look at some of these people are black belts, and I'm not going to disparage their achievement. It's just I look at it, and that's why people don't respect the rank. The black belt was once something that, not many people had, and to this day, you still have a lot of people who quit long before they reach this. Anything worth having, you gotta earn. And here you will. There will be more to come. There's gonna be some more forms. I mean, really, as a 4th degree, that's as high as I typically go with patterns. Of course, now I'm gonna start, since I put so much out, I'm gonna start to break it down to where a person understands that a block is not always just a block. The martial arts are essentially, they say things in different ways, but really they're saying the same thing. The same thing that applies in terms of balance in karate or taekwondo will apply in jiu-jitsu as well. It's just the difference is we use our balance as something to prop for strikes. In the grappling arts, it's used as something to be attacked. You attack the balance. Judo, you attack the balance. Jiu-jitsu, you attack the joint, which makes attacking the balance that much easier. Well, this one was a talker, but there'll be more. If you like the material you see, by all means, give us a like. And if you feel so inclined to see more, subscribe. Also, one last thing. Starting to come out with some merch, some t-shirts. We'll start showing those soon. Again, like or subscribe.